We are Team Drum It. My name is Maya, and my partner is Sophia, and she'll talk later in the video. So, our scenario starts out, imagine we have this young adolescent boy named John, and he has always had a strong affinity for music and musical instruments. And he goes to his parents and he says, "Mom and Dad, I really want to learn how to play the drums." And they both look at each other and they think, "Oh no, John, you are not going to play the drums. The drums are much too loud. They're going to annoy not only us, but also our neighbors. The drums are expensive. We don't have money to purchase that right now. And what if you get sick of them after 1 month? What are we going to do with a drum set?" And finally, the drums are just too big to fit in our house. This really is not going to work, John. So John, after hearing his parents' explanation, he understands. So he goes to the next best thing in his life to get his music kick. And what is that? That's GarageBand. But he really finds the interface of tapping the keys on his computer really unintuitive and unnatural. And he doesn't really know what to do next. But then he hears about this really cool device called Drum It. And that's our proposed solution to his problem. So imagine that you're sitting in front of your computer, you have this really cool thing called a leap motion sensor, and you place your hands over your leap and you start making air drumming gestures like this guy on the left hand side over your leap. And then you're actually able to play the virtual drum set that you see on your computer screen. And based on where you position your hands over the leap and where you move them around, you're able to navigate over the different drums that you have in your drum set. And once you make a flicking of the wrist gesture like this guy on the left, you play the drums like you would in real life. And so, what materials are we going to need for this project, and where are we in our current implementation? So we've obtained all of the materials that we need. We have a leap motion sensor, we have our laptops, and we've also begun to build upon our experience that we gained using the leap in Mini Project 3 in our Battleship project. And we've begun to test out how to sense and how to recognize these different gestures, like the pretend to play the drums, flick of the wrist. We've begun to investigate how to use our leap to do that. And so now let me talk a little bit about our implementation plan. So our different modalities that we're using gesture recognition of not only our hands, but we might use physical objects as we'll talk about later in this video. And so our leap motion sensor will detect these different gestures, and that's our input. And then we'll use the Leap API, I think it's called Leap SDK, that we used in the Battleship Mini Project 3. We'll build upon that. So that's the library that we're going to need. And then we'll analyze our inputs and our data, and then we will use the laptop speaker as one of our outputs to output the different sounds that each drum will make. And we also are going to use our laptop screen to show your drum set and where your hands are relative to each of the drums. And now I'm going to hand it over to Sophia to talk a little bit more about our different implementation plans. So I'll hand it over to her. Thank you.
I'm Sophia. I'm the other member of Team Drummit. So now let's get into our implementations. So for our version 1 implementation, the user will see a simple snare drum on their screen. The user can interact with the drum using a single hand. Their hitting motion will be recognized by the leap sensor, and the laptop will play the sound of a drum being hit in synchronization with the person hitting it, so it feels like a natural interaction. The volume that the drum sound is played at will correspond with the speed that their hand hit it, simulating a harder or lighter hit. Our version 2 implementation, the user will now see an entire simple drum set on their screen. So this will include a few different types of drums and cymbals. The user can now interact with any of the drums in the set, and they can use either one or two hands. Additionally, each hand can play a different drum at the same time. For our version 3 implementation, the user will again see a simple drum set on their screen. But now the user's interaction is expanded multimodally, so they can play the drums again with either one or two hands, and the computer will make the sound of a hand slapping a drum. But they can now also play with one or two extended index fingers, and their index fingers will be simulating drumsticks, so it will make the sound of drumsticks hitting drums, which definitely sounds a little different from just hands. They can also choose to bring in actual drumsticks or other stick-shaped objects, and the leap sensor will again recognize these as being drumsticks and make the sound of drumsticks hitting the drum set. For our evaluation of our system, we'll be making an iterative user process in which we go through user testing, we get their feedback, we make some improvements, and then we again user test. So for our testing, we will get some users and provide them just some simple instructions and then give them the setup experience to play around with. They'll have about 5 minutes to interact with it. During that time, we'll observe their behavior and make notes of any notable things that we see occur, anywhere from frustration to challenges to positive emotions that come up. After this time, we'll ask them for their feedback about their experiences and about the system, and we'll combine both their feedback with our notes to come up with some changes that we want to make in the next development iteration of our system. These changes could be bug technical fixes, or they could be user experience changes that we want to implement. And again, this process will be iterative, and we will continue to do it as we move through developing our system through versions 1 and hopefully 2 and 3 if time allows. That's all for the Drummit system, and thanks for listening.